Well, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, and welcome to Sunday school. I sound like I'm in an echo chamber here. Let me fix this real quick.
Leave me alone, said the lonely man. I don't wanna let go of this feeling.
Okay,
Leave me to roam.
that'll do it. Oh, no, it's not doing it. Let's see. How about that? Yeah, there we go. Well, welcome to Sunday school. I'm your teacher for today, Alonzo Richard Fleming, and we have a lesson for you this morning that is, I think, is going to be enlightening and interesting, and one that will and edifying also. Um, Before I get into the lesson for today, make sure it seems like my lighting is not right here. Let's see. How's that light? There we go. Let's get that light together. Before I get into the lesson this morning, I want to make a few remarks surrounding uh, the the latest issue going on in Florida, in the state of Florida, with respect to Governor Ron DeSantis um, and the Texas State Board of Education basically denouncing and rejecting the whole idea of an AP, which is an advanced placement course, of an AP course in African American studies. And I wrote a rather lengthy uh, commentary on that and posted it on my Facebook page surrounding that. I mean, I'm heavily involved in advanced placement courses uh, uh, with mathematics and science in particular, but advanced placement courses are the courses that are taught in high school that give students college credit for a deeper study in that particular subject. For example, you have advanced placement calculus, which gives students credit, college credit, for having taken a calculus course in high school, thereby saving them time, money, um, because they don't have to take the advanced place. They don't have to take calculus in high school. And it's the same with physics, advanced placement physics, and advanced placement government, and advanced placement U.S. history. There is a section in the advanced placement coursework, culture and literature. This heading is called culture and literature, or literature and culture, or language and culture, I should say. Under the language and culture heading of the AP, you can go to collegeboard.org and see this. This is the people who administer the advanced placement test. Under this language and culture heading, there are 8 other courses that students can take that will give them advanced placement credit in college. And there's German, there's advanced placement German culture, advanced placement Chinese, advanced placement Japanese, advanced placement literature, advanced placement Spanish. And in these courses, you learn about the culture and the contributions of these particular and regions and languages. Well, there is a proposal that had been a proposal to include an advanced placement African American studies, which would give the student a deeper understanding and a deeper knowledge of the contributions of Black people in the development of the United States of America. This proposal, this course, was rejected as being racist, as being and having no value for the American people to learn about the contributions of black people in this country, which we all know has been a love-hate relationship. Now, I wrote an article and I said in that article that uh, DeSantis and the Board of Education was right in rejecting it on the basis of not having any educational value to learn this. And the reason I wrote this article and the reason I wanted to take a different viewpoint is to help you to understand how to elevate above the war and to control the situation. You see, when a world has been built on confusion, oppression, and lies, then truth has no value to that world. So if they were to learn about the contributions of black people to this country, it would snap the power, the illusion of white supremacy. Do you see this? So it has no value in the continuation of white supremacy. It has no educational value. Learning about the contributions of black people in America has no educational value in the continuation of white supremacy. So he was prudent and he was right for rejecting it on that basis. But there's a problem. Our old heads, our civil rights heads, want to keep breathing life into white supremacy by forcing them to accept this whole idea. How long have we been doing this? How long have we been trying to force another man to accept us when it's clear he doesn't accept us? When it's clear that the world that he has built is based upon ignorance of the human family and the contributions of the human family, development of humanity. You're acting like children, preparing to make signs and march and protest to force a man to accept you in his world. This is folly. I suggest that we rise above the battlefield by getting silent, becoming silent. And if you have anything to say about it, say, okay. I need you to ponder that and go to my article on Facebook that I wrote and read it carefully. It is DeSantis and the Board of Education of Texas was right in rejecting it. And my premise is it's right because the continuation of white supremacy depends upon ignorance. And you breathing life into it by trying to force knowledge of your contributions into it. Do you understand this? It is time to let it die and stop trying to fix it. Let it die. White skinned folks are tired of it. And many of them want to let it die. Let it die. that is my segue. I'm going to use that as a segue into the lesson today about the Tower of Babel. And we're going to see some things in here that you will see where my reasoning comes from. We're going to start off our reading at Genesis chapter 11 and to get started. Now I read out of the King James version of the Bible, and the reason I read out of the King James version, even though the language in the King James version is somewhat difficult for some, I read out of the King James version because it has captured all of it pulls the sheets off of the mysteries. See, the versions keep coming out because it's got to be covered up. The mysteries of liberation and freedom got to be covered up continually. So the book has to keep being revised. And so this particular version, they hadn't caught all of them. And so when you read the New American Standard and the other versions, all of the mysteries, all of the things that will free the mind have been written out and changed. Elijah Muhammad said that the Bible could be used for the elevation of humanity, but it has been poisoned and must be reinterpreted, because the interpretation of the Bible that we have at present is the continuation of oppression of the human family. Genesis chapter 11, I'm going to read verses 1, and I'm going to skip through here through 1 through 9. And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech. And it came to pass that as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said to one another, go to, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime they had for mortar. And they said, go to, let us build us a city and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven. And let us make a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower, which the children of men builded. He was watching them build. That's why it's builded. And the Lord said, behold, the people is one, and they have all one language. And this they began to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them what they have imagined. Go to, let us go down and confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. Therefore, or that is why, is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth, and from there did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. Now, if you continue to read this chapter, you will see that it immediately goes into the generations of the children of Noah and begin to give out a lineage of the children of Noah. If you continue to read this, it immediately jumps to the children of Noah and start talking about their lineage. And before verse or chapter 11, if you go to chapter 10 in the last verse, you will see that the subject is talking about Noah and the children of Noah. Put a pin in that briefly, because that means something when it starts talking about they decided to build a city. They were all of one language and one thought and one mind. My subject this morning, ladies and gentlemen, is the gods of confusion. and the atonement of humanity. Now, as I said earlier, Elijah Muhammad of the Muslims, which was commonly called back in those days the black Muslims, he said that the Bible could be used to free humanity from the snare of the devil, but it had to be reinterpreted to do that. And there would be some who would be given the knowledge and wisdom and understanding to reinterpret it, to open the eyes of the blind so that humanity could see. And so this is what day we are in, ladies and gentlemen, that the eyes of the blind are not now being opened. And if you ever wanted to see, an example of the flesh, the Bible talks about that the flesh wars against spirit and the spirit against flesh. And this is what keeps us from doing the things that we would do because of this war that's going on. And if you ever wanted to see how this war is unfolding, then you read this chapter. If you go to Genesis 8, 9, 10, and 11 and read about it, you will see it. It's right there in front of you. The flesh trying to make war on spirit. Now, I'm not going to try here this morning to unravel all of the mysteries in this one time, but what I am planning to do, brothers and sisters, is to take this time to point out the obvious to you, which your holy mind recognize, but the fear that's been embedded in you prevents you from admitting to what you obviously see in the Bible, in all the books. It is the obvious, the reality of humanity's natural tendency towards oneness. This is obvious. This is obvious that the humanity wants peace. It's obvious that humanity's tendency is towards oneness. And the ego constantly, the devil constantly warns humanity and those who are gullible against oneness, calling it the devil and division of God. And so you fear a one world government. You fear the idea of oneness of all of mankind. You fear the idea of unity, yet you desire unity more than anything. What is the black man's cry these days? We got to unify. Well, how can you unify if the basis of your thinking is division? How can you do it? You cannot unify and then talk about a one world government or one world civilization or oneness of humanity be of evil and division be and separation be of God. So the ego or the devil has an investment in keeping humanity warring. And the ego or the devil, I'm going to use them interchangeably, uses the power, the very power of your mind to do that. See, it has no power except to convince you that you are not one, that you are more than one, that you are both good and evil. You see that? You are not unified within yourself. You are both good and evil. And then this extends to your family. It's good and evil. And then it extends right to humanity. You are not one. You are not unified. The ego uses the power of humanity's mind against himself through deceit, sleight of hand, illusions, and innuendo. So now I want to lay this foundation for this lesson today I want you to go to the book in your Bible of First Corinthians chapter 14, and I want to show you something. First Corinthians chapter 14, and we're going to read verses 1 and 2, and then 6 through 9. Follow after charity and desire spiritual gifts, but rather that you may prophesy. Now, let me say this word prophesy means speak clearly. For he that speaks, verse 2, he that speaks in an unknown tongue speaks not to men, but to God. For no man understands him, because he is in the spirit speaking mysteries. But he that prophesies speaks unto men for edification, exhortation, and comfort. He that speaks in an unknown tongue edifies himself. He that prophesies edifies the church. Let me skip down to verse 6. Now, brethren, if I come to you speaking with tongues or something you don't understand, what shall I profit you, except I shall speak to you either by revelation or by knowledge or by prophesying or by doctrine? And even things without life-giving sound, whether it be a pipe or a harp, except they give a distinction in the sounds, how shall it be known what is piped or harp? In other words, except you understand it, how will anyone know what you're talking about? If you come with unknown tongues, speaking in a language that nobody understands, it is not profitable. Nobody understands this. In other words, you got to speak in a language that everyone understands. You have to communicate in a language that everybody understands. Clear communication is essential for humanity. And the clear communication has to be in the language that of the hearer. The hearer has to understand the idea that you're trying to propose or the philosophy that you're espousing. The hearer has to understand it. The speaker has a duty to speak to the hearer in a way to where the hearer understands, or else there's confusion. And if you have to turn the obvious on its head, you are speaking in an unknown tongue and you are not profitable in your speech. For example, if you think that a man is going to float down on a literal physical cloud, no one understands that. Do you understand what I just said? It's obvious that you can't stand on a physical cloud because of the relative density of the physical body to the cloud. It's obvious. So you have to turn an entire way of thinking. Your mind got to be turned and flipped on its head to think something like that in the face of the obvious. So the speaker has to be able to speak in the language and the syntax of the hearer, the person listening. Now, the hearer has a duty also. The hearer has a duty to listen for content and ideas. Because the content and the idea is the substance of the speaking. The ideas are within the spirit, and the content is the body of words that he's using to try to convey this idea that to you. So the hearer has a duty to listen to the speaker for content. What that means that you have to set aside what you previously thought long enough to hear for content what the speaker is trying to say. I'm setting you up. I guess you know this right now. I'm setting you up. Now listen. First Corinthians, going back to First Corinthians 14 and going down to verse 33, it says here, for God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. God is not the author of confusion. You can take the word, the other stuff out of there. You can say, God is not the author of confusion. God is the author of peace. So let me give a few definitions. Now, our main scripture is in Genesis about the Tower of Babel. God is not the author of confusion. God is the author of peace. The word author means originator, maker, creator. That is the word, that's the definition of the word author. The originator of something, the creator or maker of something. The word peace is the natural state of man. But the dictionary defines peace as non-warring or not having conflicting thoughts. When your thoughts agree in your mind, the body of thinking that's in you, that you are using, the thought system that you are using, when it agrees, it is that you are at peace. It is the war in your mind that breaks peace from you. Not what somebody does, but the thinking that you're using in your mind to deal with whatever circumstance that's coming to you. When your thinking does not agree, you are not at peace. Peace is the absence of war. And when you are at peace, you are not preparing for war because you are not at war. Peace is the natural state of humanity. It is what we tend toward peace. Now, confusion is disorder, upheaval, chaos, and confounded. Confusion has a synonym of being confounded. In other words, confounded and confusion mean the same thing. There are two different words used to convey the same thing. Confusion, confounded, disorder, upheaval, chaos. But First Corinthians said that God is not the author of confusion, of confounding, of upheaval, of chaos. God is not the originator or the maker or the creator of confusion. God of confusion. Now, I'm giving you a good foundation because I know you and I trust you, your God mind. So I can give you the foundation and you can go and build upon that foundation. Peace, listen, we talked about the fruits of the Spirit last Wednesday, and peace is the third fruit of the Spirit. If you remember in the book of Galatians chapter 6, it talks about the fruits of the Spirit are these, or the fruits of spirit, or the nature of spirit, is this: love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, meekness. And then it ends that verse by saying, against the fruit of the Spirit, there is no law against peace. There is no law against joy. There is no law against long suffering. Do you see that? There is no law against peace. Peace is the absence of war. When you have a war, you are confounded and confused. But there's no law against peace. God is not in the business of being a peace breaker. It says in John, the book of John in the Bible, peace I leave with you. This is Jesus talking. My peace I leave, not as the world I leave with you. Jesus leaves peace. He's known as the Prince of Peace. And then it talks about the peace that passes all understanding or passes all perception. Peace is the peace of God, is my one goal, says A Course in Miracle. The peace of God is my one goal, the aim of all my living here, the end I seek, my purpose and my function and my life. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. The kingdom of God, says Romans chapter 15, is righteousness, peace, and joy. And then in another place, it talks about the God of peace being with you all. Peace is the result of a unified or one mind. It says, be of one mind and live in peace. 1 Corinthians 13:11. God is not the author of confusion, but God is the author of peace. So then the natural question is, who is this in Genesis 11 coming down and talking about let us confound them? Because the condition of man was, according to the story, was one mind. And this entity called the Lord saw this. And this entity called the Lord recognized what would happen if this people who was of one mind and one idea was able, they would complete the task for which they had done. See, you want to know who this people is and who this Lord is that came and confused the earth, to stop the earth, came and broke peace from among the human family and caused the human family to be in confusion. Who is this? Or what is this? I often talk to you about Genesis chapter 1, and in Genesis chapter 1, I point out to you the Garden of Eden story, and you just got to go back and read it. Because you should now be getting a new look at the characters in the Garden of Eden story. You should now be getting a good idea of what was happening in Genesis chapter 1 when he said, let us make man in our image and in our likeness, and let them be fruitful, multiply, able to eat from all the trees, able to do this, that, and the other. It should be dawning on your mind concerning the fact that I told you that in the Bible there are two gods. There's the God of the spirit, and there's the God of the flesh, perpetrating like he's the God of the spirit, like he's your creator. You see, your creator is one. Your creator is the God of peace. Your creator is the God of life. Jesus talked about, I represent the God of the living, not the God of the dead. In other words, your God does not have death in her mind, but life in her mind. So we want to ask the question, when it talks about in Genesis chapter 11, let us go down and confound them or confuse them, because they will build what they have placed their minds to. We have been told in times past that this is your God, your creator, your originator, who put out confusion to confuse humanity. But it says that God is not the author. God is not the one of confusion, but he is the God of peace. And you can't have evil and peace at the same time. One of them got to go. You think about it. You cannot have unity and wickedness at the same time. You can't have love and deceit at the same time. One of them have to go. So here in Genesis chapter 11, you can't have a one mind and evil in what that one mind is doing. Well, you might say it was one mind of white supremacy. They agreed to go over to Africa and divide up Africa. And they were of one mind and one spirit. You need to look deeper at the wars and the greed and the slaughter that the Europeans were doing to each other. World War I, World War II, and now World War III, for the same reasons. You can't have love and respect for humanity and have peace at the same time. The gods of confusion. Now, I speak to you often about Willie Lynch. And Willie Lynch, if you never read the Willie Lynch letter, was one who wrote this letter supposedly to these slave masters who were having problems controlling their slaves. And he gave them a foolproof method for controlling them even after they left out of physical slavery. It had to do with the stripping away of the humanity of the prospective slave, and then installing an operating system of slavery that would perpetuate itself. And this operating system of slavery consisted of all of the institutions that govern a civilization. And so you get religion. You get the institution of religion. You don't give the slave a religion that teaches him that he is one with God. You give him a religion that teaches him he is cursed because he saw Noah drunk. You don't give the slave a religion that gives him heaven and peace and joy in his present manifestation on earth. You give him a religion that he has to die to get streets of gold, to get peace, to get freedom, to get rest. You give him a religion that teaches him he got to die. That's the God of death. And this God of death that you getting this nonsense from teaches you that you got to die first. And that somebody else can get peace and joy and love and unity right here on earth, but you got to die to get it. And when you see them Negroes getting sick, they run into the hospital faster than you going. Even though they talking about they going to heaven, they want to stay here just as long as you want to stay here. You got to die to get their heaven and to get their hell. God of confusion. This confuses you because you know your life is here. You know you're living and you know you're here for a purpose and a reason and you want to express it, but it's been chained and shackled by a thought system that is against you. And you defend it. You defend the slave thought system. And this is why you're now preparing to build, make signs, and protest DeSantis, because you don't understand. As God has life in himself, so does the Son has life in himself. You don't understand the power of that and what Jesus was saying when he mentioned that. Because you do not understand yourself and who you are or what you are. And so you bow down and say, God knew that this was evil for men to be one. And so he had to come down and confuse humanity and cause humanity not to be able to understand one another. And as a result of not understanding one another, go to war against each other. I don't want to know nothing about you Negroes and your contribution to the development of this country. The God of confusion is behind that. The God of death is behind that. Let them die. Stop breathing life into the ego. I want to say this especially to our sisters because you are life givers. But because you have not understood the masculine energy before you, you are using your wisdom, and wisdom without knowledge is susceptible to the ego, and the ego produces confusion. And so you are breathing life into the mind of your very enemy. And wondering why your sons are consistently in prison and confused and don't know which way to turn. And the girls they have nothing to offer except shaking their butt on Facebook. That's what they got to offer. You're breathing life into your enemy. And I said last week that your enemy is in the mirror. And since you don't like the one that's in the mirror, you do things and that is meant to destroy the one in the mirror. Fall in love with yourself because it is the self that contains the power of God. God is the God of peace, of righteousness, and of joy. And then Paul said in another letter, closing it out, the God of peace be with you all. See, peace is the result of a unified mind. But why don't we experience this peace? And why do we seem volatile, dangerous, and confounded and confused? And how can we escape? in Genesis chapter 11. It's called, this is verse 9, it's called the Tower of Babel, and it gives you the reason why it's called the Tower of Babel. It's called the Tower of Babel because from there the Lord scattered and confounded humanity. You get that? Did you get that? God is not the author of confusion, but from there the Lord confounded or confused and scattered humanity. He divided, he separated humanity. And this is the great sin of humanity, separation. It is not, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't get sex, I don't mess around with my brother's wife, I don't mess around with my sister's husband. That is not the sin. The sin, the definite article, the is reference to an individual, not an act. The sin is separation, the separation. And the sinner is the Lord who did the confusing and the confounding and the separating and the warring of humanity. You see it in the book of Job. He sits there after he tells the devil to go whip Job's ass, kill all his kids, kill all his servants, give Job HIV, cause his woman to revolt, bankrupt the man, and the devil comes back to him and says, you understand, you should take his life, this, that, and the other. He said, yes, you provoked me without a cause to oppress this man, a righteous man. Who is that? Who is that doing all that? Killing, bloodshedding. How and why does he confound humanity? He wants slaves. You see this in the book of Genesis still, where he talks about he found a man in another place, but because the scales are on your eyes, you don't see it as him going over to Africa, finding a man, molding him there, bringing him in, putting him in the garden for the purpose of dressing and keeping the garden. You think it was a good thing. Read it. He went to another land, got him, he molded him over while he was in his other land, and then he brought him here and then developed him further to be slaves. He put him to sleep. He blinded his mind. He wants slaves, that's why. And he found minds open to that process to oversee this enslavement of all humanity. How does he do it? How does he confound humanity? Through lies. Jesus said to them, ye are of your father the devil, and the deeds of your father you will do. He was a liar from the beginning. You think that was the serpent. But if you look at what the serpent said, the serpent didn't lie. The serpent told the truth. He said, your eyes will be open. He said, you will know that you are like God, knowing good and evil. You would get wisdom when your eyes are open. Serpent didn't lie. Sure enough, you see, just before they kicked him out the garden, this same person that's in Genesis chapter 11, talking about let's go down and confuse humanity, said to his cohorts, look, the man has become one and is like us, knowing good and evil. Unless he go back to that serpent and learn more from that serpent, the tree of life, and live forever, we need to kick him out of this garden. We still gonna make him work, but we're gonna kick him out of the garden. He's gonna work from the place he was found. So he uses lies, he uses deceit, he uses innuendo, and he uses ignorance. He uses lies by getting humanity to base our thinking on doctrines, on the holiness of books, rather than the universal experience of oneness with God. It is the only proof that you are in communication with the God. Jesus said, by this shall all men know that you following me, if you have love one towards another. You cannot have love and separation. You cannot have love and war. You cannot have it. The two don't mix. So the doctrines, and so everybody is going around trying to get their doctrine instilled in humanity. They got 500 people in their whole church, and they thinking that they're the only one going to heaven out of 7 billion people. It is impossible, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I'm in your temple. Yes, I'm in your temple. And yes, I'm flipping over tables in your temple. And yes, I'm beating out the money changers in your temple. It is impossible to have a universal doctrine. It is impossible. And this is how he divides humanity, by making you believe, making me believe that it's possible to have a doctrine that fits every human on planet Earth. And then warns you against the only thing that is possible: a universal experience. The universal experience of love is the only thing that can be used, that cuts across doctrines and cultures and languages and locations and religions and habits and mores and customs. It is love. It is the God level. God is love. And this is how all humanity will know that you are of God, if you love. And you are love because you were made in love. You are in the image and likeness of God himself, and God is love. Therefore, you, as the offspring of God, your very essence is love, and not your doctrine. I don't care what you are saying. You see clearly. You go to Detroit, there's 4 churches on every corner, and killing on every block. You go to Chicago, 4 churches on every corner, and killing on every block. You go to Newark, 4 churches on every corner. Go where you will in Black America and see, don't you see churches and killing and liquor and crime? What is the correlation between the two? Confusion is the correlation. The fact that each one thinks that his doctrine is the one. The only doctrine is the doctrine of love. Period. He does this. He confounds humanity by causing us to judge about the value of one child of God over another. And so you don't value this brother and his contributions to America. And what does it cause? Confusion and scattering. Because one American or one citizen of the United States says that another citizen of the United States has no value. The gods of confusion. And so I'm going to close, but he confuses and confounds by elevating writings above spirit. Now, writing is good to help us, to guide us, but if your writing does not guide you towards looking inward, where Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is, he said, don't look here and don't look there, don't go here, don't go there, for behold, the kingdom of heaven is within you. The books are only mirrors to help you see yourself. Once you see yourself, you are in connection with the God. So this person writes to me, the way I'm explaining it, it seems that if earth is the realm that Satan controls, well, I'm using the Bible specifically on Sunday, so I will address that because it goes right in with the lesson. It says that the God, for them who refuse to see, this is in Romans chapter 1, he said that they are blinded. The God of this earth or the God of this world blinds the mind of them who believe not, believe what? Not what? Believe not that you are the offspring of God. You open yourself up for the God of this world. And the God of this world blinds the mind, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, listen, the glorious gospel of Christ, which is the image of God, should shine unto them. So the glorious gospel of Christ, brother, is the image of God. Go to Genesis chapter 1. Let us make man in our image. You are the gospel of Christ. And if you don't believe that, the God of this world blinds your mind to that knowledge. How do we experience the peace of God and escape the confusion of the Lord? By rising above the battleground, by not conforming to the world, by being transformed. How? By the renewing of your mind. Let this mind be in Christ you, as it was in Christ Jesus, who being in the form of God, Genesis chapter 1, thought it not robbery to be equal with God. This, ladies and gentlemen, as the Course in Miracles says, and I'm going to close with this. As the Course in Miracles says, that did that wrong. The Course in Miracles says that when the light of the gospel, and I'm paraphrasing, dawns on your mind, when it finally hits you who and what you are, when you finally understand, the only thing that you are going to realize in that moment is, I need do nothing. I'm Dr. Fleming, and I'm